So here we go. This is chapter 10, which of Getting It, 8 Facts That Fuel Recovery if we face them. And there's a picture, of course. This is a picture also from my first book, White Knuckles and Wishful Thinking. If you can't read it, it says figure 10 for chapter 10. Why we quote, choose, unquote, pain. And then it says, see Tolle's Power of Now, page 188. So that quote is not from the program as such, but it really links up to what I'm about to read. And the title of this chapter is P.S. : A big light bulb for me after writing all this. And keep in mind, I wrote this a while back. I've actually had further light bulbs since then, but, got to stick with what we got for now until I do a second edition. And it starts like this. I'll be damned. I wrote the first version of this book in pencil just about a year ago. Been polishing and letting it ripen, polishing and ripening ever since. Thought I was ready for the publisher about 2 weeks ago. Then what happens? I'm rereading the last section of Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, and a bloody light bulb of understanding clicks on. To give you an idea, my margin notes record that I first read that chapter of Tolle in 2005. I'm going to try to make it easier for you than it was for me. A picture of less than 1,000 words might help. If you will be so kind, imagine yourself going into a buffet. You're really hungry. You lift the lid of the first steel tray to find hot, steaming tofu and peanut butter. Many of you would find that repulsive and slam the lid. If you are a peanut butter junkie like me, married to a vegetarian, it might seem like an okay possibility, but you do want to see what else they offer. Peanut butter and broccoli, perhaps. You open the next lid and find another steaming tray of tofu and peanut butter. Oh well. Third time lucky, as my third mother-in-law said when I confessed my marital track record. Not so much. Another tray of peanut butter and tofu, and another, and another. You have now lifted every single lid in that buffet line, and they all offer the same thing. But you're hungry, so you, quote, choose, unquote, your meal. This is clearly a voluntary act. Your brain tells your body to fill your plate with the only food that is available. Your body humbly obeys. Now, imagine somebody looks at your plate and judges you for your choice. Quotation marks on that. Your, quote, choice, unquote. Somebody who cannot even see the steam trays thinks of you, what awful taste. Is that fair? It isn't just that the alcoholic addict, whatever, needs to realize 8 things, that is, to find the willingness to work the program. No, it is so much bigger than that, and simpler, and more universal. And it connects directly to the very foundation and purpose of 12-step recovery, of any recovery, for anyone. Every human being making any decision at any given moment knows only one reality, his or her own. The one blinking in his or her head at precisely that moment and different from everyone else's. And that reality sets his or her choices in that moment. Forget willingness. We are talking about ability here. Every human being is powerless over the inability to choose that which is not real to them at the moment of choice. Choice in quotes again. Not just people with addictions. We can't pick what we can't even see, any of us. In other words, if there's only one steam tray in our head, that's what we're going to pick. That's not in the book, by the way. I just threw that in. If, in your reality, at that moment, the world is flat, how could you decide to plan a trip around it? If, in your reality, at that moment, invisible germs on your hands make you sick, how could you decide not to wash them? If, in your 6-year-old reality, at that moment, you're standing at the toilet with your bladder bursting, how could you not decide to go pee-pee? Unfortunately, if you're really in bed, that's not going to turn out so well. If, in your reality at that moment, you're dying of a heart attack, how could you not decide to call 911? And all of those decisions are in parentheses. More to the point, if in your reality at that moment you can have one drink, one drug, whatever, potato chip, gambling, porn site, whatever, just one, if that's what's real to you, how can you choose anything else? It doesn't matter what you, quote, believed, unquote, sitting in treatment or even 5 minutes ago. If, in your reality, at that very moment, pain is intolerable and the only relief possible is your favorite fix, how can you, quote, choose, unquote, anything else? It does not matter what you believed a week ago when you called your sponsor and felt better. What is real to you in this moment of making this decision? That is what I got from Tolley's answer to the question about why people, quote, choose, unquote, pain. They don't. Then I got what AA has been trying to tell me since 1972, when I first went to an open meeting and read the Big Book. The subtitle of that section of Tolley's book, question mark, The Power to Choose. The Power to Choose. That's the name of his subsection. It's actually in the last chapter of the book, and the whole chapter is about surrender. And what does the Big Book say? Quote, we have lost the power of choice in drink, unquote. Actually, we've lost control of two choices. First, the decision to limit and control our use. And when that doesn't work, the decision to not use at all. Put another way, we lose the ability to decide how much to use, if we ever had it. Then we may be horrified to find we cannot choose whether we drink or use or whatever. I know I don't have any brakes, and I start up the car and start driving anyway. How does the Big Book put it? If, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, decide whether to not drink, or if, when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, how much you drink, you're probably alcoholic. That's the physical reality of step one in a nutshell, without the emotional experience. I think it was the alcoholic in the book Under the Volcano who said, quote, an alcoholic is someone who can take it or leave it, so he takes it. What has to be different for the person who thinks, quote, let me start that again. What has to be different for the person who thinks, quote, one won't hurt, unquote, or any other wishful way of making the decision and picks up the first drink / drug / whatever? What is it that must change if he or she is not to experience this thought, not to make a decision based on believing it, and not to suffer still more? What must be removed from his or her experience of reality or added to it, or both? Yes, this is abstract. I'm ad-libbing here. Don't forget those tofu trays. What steel tray has to be gotten rid of, what new tray has to take its place for the buffet in the person's head to offer the right choices. That was ad-lib. But you do not have to go to college. Did I read that sentence? Yes, this is abstract. But you do not have to go to college to know the difference between a buffet with 4 or 5 choices and one where all the steam trays offer the same crap. The part that may take a little mental work is to realize I am talking about this, quote, buffet, unquote, of choices in your own mind at the moment of making the decision. For instance, I decided to add lib there, and in my mind, I had forgotten that I really kind of already was explaining it in the text, so you got it twice. Won't hurt you. You cannot choose what is not there in your own head. Believe me, the intellectuals have just as much trouble getting this as anyone else. Look at me, almost 70 frickin' years old and just now getting it. I hope all of you get it much younger than I did. The wishful thinker who recovers is the one who realizes he or she has, quote, lost the power of choice, unquote, over having just one. Only by facing the fact that he or she cannot ever control how much he or she uses does any addict get control of the second choice, whether to use. And the addict may have to realize there is another set of options. Call the sponsor, go to a meeting, use tools learned in therapy or anyplace else. These realizations make actual choice possible. In effect, they're new steel trays in your head. 12-step recovery usually has to wait for potential members to realize that the decision to have even just one is poison, and that they suffer a mysterious inability to leave the poison alone even after they have seen that skull and crossbones. Intervention and treatment, on the other hand, try to help people realize all of this sooner than they would have. Treatment of various kinds also tries to help patients realize there are positive alternatives to having even just one. Alternatives to the old fix that are solid enough not to disappear when, quote, that old threadbare idea, unquote, of just one starts chirping again. What about the person who has become so frustrated he or she, quote, snaps, unquote, who curses and reaches for the first drink or drug or whatever they reach for? How does his or her reality have to be changed in that moment so completely that it holds up even when things go wrong? For this person, the steam tray labeled coping is crucial. Ingredients like asking for help and the serenity prayer, cultivating a whole new attitude like spirituality toward life, even psychotherapy and homework may not be very appealing. But the alternative is poison. Besides, other people who used to curse and reach for poison smile and say, yum. Treatment that provides actual experience of tools that work seems necessary. Individual and group psychotherapy may try to lower the barriers to using some tools. Barriers like the hatred of not being in control, of asking for help, of feeling unsafe. Trauma survivors. The almost inevitable fruits of trauma, big or small. Listening to other people describe similar problems and how certain tools have worked may be a crucial experience, a way perhaps the only one for those particular tools to become real enough that the person will even think of them in a moment of pain and perhaps actually use them. What bridges the gap from bold-faced denial or half-hearted compliance to be, quote, becoming willing to go to any length, unquote, for recovery? Where does the willingness come from? To grow and nurture a mental state that never forgets it is the first drink or drug or whatever my fix was, that cherishes cliches like, quote, one is too many and 1,000 aren't enough, or you get run over by the engine, not the caboose. Not to mention growing and nurturing a mental state that always decides there is something better than the fix and almost nothing worse. This book has offered you an answer to these questions. A series of experiences called, I'll put this in quote too, realization. Usually 8 of them. I've been comparing them to 8 slices of willingness pie, the food without which your recovery work will starve. In the last paragraph, they will transform from nourishment to light bulbs. Here they are, one more time. Take your pick. Steel trays, light bulbs, you name it. So, A, this is 4 facts always present in the moment of deciding to drink or use with wishful thinking. In other words, one won't hurt, this time will be different, etc. Any of them may also be present at moments of deciding to relapse with a curse word. Each starts with an emotional each thing on this list starts with an emotional snapshot of the fact listed below. Then a verbal x-ray of the experience over time, including the realization of what needs to be done. So the first one, my verbal snapshot of it is, oops, I forgot. The x-ray is this. What I'm realizing, when you put it all together, and it may not be in my head as words, even when I'm realizing it, what I'm realizing is the fact that I can forget my suffering, my own suffering so thoroughly, I see no reason in the moment not to decide to do the very thing that causes it. This is part of the realization, I realize I better find something I can decide to do in this moment that helps me remember in the next, and the next, and the next, lest we forget. So the second realization, the snapshot of it is this. My hand is in the cookie jar, only it isn't pulling out cookies. The fact that it is unless I'm an overeater, the fact that it is my clean and sober self who decides in the moment to pick up that first drink or drug or whatever it is, including cookies. I need to find a way, I realize, if I'm having the experience, I'm talking about an experience, I need to find a way in this moment to preserve that awareness so that it is still here in the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. 3, snapshot. My stick-to-itiveness just doesn't stick. The x-ray of that, looking inside that experience and trying to put it all in words. The fact that I can decide in one moment to limit my use and change my mind in the next. Then I can decide in another moment not to use at all, and in some later moment decide to use. I cannot stick to either decision. I need to find something in this moment that is not me. Maybe a better way to put it is that is beyond me, because I would include medication on this list, to give me back my power of choice and to keep it in the next moment and the next and the next. 4, snapshot. How can I fall for that again? Like deja vu all over again. The x-ray of the experience is the fact that believing a falsehood and deciding to act on it with such disastrous consequences is crazy. In any moment, I need something, not my own best thinking, to, quote, restore me to sanity of decision making, making sane decisions, and keep me there, moment by moment. Can't leave, no vacations, no breaks. So that's 4 realizations that seem to be necessary for somebody who has really gotten step 1. And it's not like they necessarily put them all in words, but if they don't have these realities, they're sitting ducks for the next relapse. The screw it relapse, the realizations that generate willingness, and I hope you can hear the willingness to do something in each of these, at least an openness. But these are 4 facts always present in the moment of deciding to drink or use with that curse, or what I've politely called expletive thinking. Any of them, I forget, is that the Canadian way of saying there's expletive and there's expletive? And I lived partly in Canada, so I always get it wrong. Expletive thinking, expletive thinking, any of them may also be present at moments of deciding to relapse with wishful thinking. So, the first snapshot of the first expletive, I think it's expletive for Americans, expletive relapse, the first realization, the snapshot of it is giving up, not one of my better moments. The fact, I now see, that the moment of deciding to reach for my fix, instead of deciding to face my problems, is just plain quitting. I need to find ways to, quote, keep on keeping on, unquote, without my fix and in any and all moments of frustration. So that's the first one. Number 6, which is the second of the expletive ones, to care or not to care, but how? This is the fact that deciding in one moment that I don't care, when I really do, is going to cost me everything I care about at a later moment. I need to find a way to live with my caring and my vulnerability in the world the way it is, no matter what the moment brings. If I find that way, I must decide to follow it. So number 7, snapshot of, and again, these are experiences. I'm giving you a kind of an intellectual anatomy of them, but listen to it in terms of what is this person experiencing? Have I experienced this? Can I see it in others? Can I see people who don't experience it? But this next one is grow up or die. The fact, this is the x-ray of it, the fact that deciding to drink or use whatever when I am upset at the moment is childish. That deciding in the moment to believe what I want over the facts and then using is also childish. I need to make a decision to use present and future moments to grow up and make more adult decisions. Number 8,